I didn't like it. I did not like it. Fright, nope. All I know is that tuna was written way too frequently in this book. But Julie and Gaunt, oh my gosh. Hello, my beautiful book besties. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Delaney if you are new here, and we are here with February's reading wrap up. We're gonna be talking about the 15 books that I read in the month of February. I am very impressed with myself reading 15 books in the shortest month of the year. That's an achievement. I don't know how I did it. I feel like I wasn't reading that much. Life has been really busy, so I feel like I haven't been reading that much, but clearly I have. So we're gonna talk about them. There were some really high highs this month and some really low lows. I'm just gonna be honest. There were some books that I really hated. So we're gonna dive through all of them, talk about them, unpack them, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about the books that I read in the month of February. Starting off with the nonfiction, I read The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, and I've been seeing this book all over TikTok. Mel Robbins is like my entire For You page, and I'm not mad about it. I love it. I love this theory. I love this book. It is incredible. I thought it would be pretty simple, like the Let Them Theory. Like, you just let people do what they're gonna do. You can't control people's actions, kind of like release and control, yada yada. I was like, that sounds very basic. But reading this book was so empowering, and the way that she wrote this book, it just felt like there's so many different ways you can apply this theory that you wouldn't even think about. And the like let them and let me, it just like really puts you in the driver's seat of your own life. This is a book I would highly recommend everybody read. It was incredible. The audiobook was really amazing too. It's narrated by Mel Robbins, and she's just hilarious. She adds like her own little like side notes into the audiobook, and it was like so funny. I just adore her. I love her podcast, everything about her. She's incredible. I don't rate nonfiction, so I'm not going to rate this book, but I can tell you that I do recommend it. Then we actually have another nonfiction, but this is a memoir. I read The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting, and this is by the actress that played Luna Lovegood in the Harry Potter movies, and I have never seen the Harry Potter movies. I read them all as a kid, but I never actually watched the movies, so I don't know her. Like, prior to this book, I didn't know her, but this was recommended to me by someone in my book club, and it was incredible. This pretty much just follows her eating disorder and her journey through recovery and kind of what that felt like. And as someone who has lived through it personally, and I also work with that population in my job, I'm an eating disorder recovery coach as well, and just hearing her story and hearing her call out the flaws in the treatment centers and the treatment programs, and just that system is so flawed, and hearing her talk about it, I related so deeply to her story. And what I loved most about this is I feel like eating disorder memoirs in particular are really difficult to do, where they're not just kind of like a triggering how-to manual for like eating disorders. I feel like it's really, the waters get murky when you start including like numbers or behaviors or those types of things, because the eating disorders are inherently so competitive. And so reading a book like that in memoir style is really unhelpful for people in recovery. This one I think definitely could still be sensitive if you are really deep in it, but as someone who's a little bit more removed from it, I feel like I really enjoyed this. I feel like where I'm at in my life right now, I could really enjoy this book and really appreciate her writing. I just think she did a beautiful job, and I think this book could be really valuable too for anyone that loves someone with an eating disorder. I feel like it gives really great insight into kind of how it feels to live with one and be in the brain, because they're so hard to understand if you haven't lived it. So again, I don't rate memoirs or nonfiction, no rating, but incredible. If you feel like you're in a place to read it, it's really great. And I read The Crash by Frida McFadden. This is her new release that came out at the beginning of this month. I did not like it. I give it 2 stars. I feel like there was nothing thrilling about this thriller. I liked it at the beginning. I was like, this is kind of easy to read. And normally I feel like Frida's are reverse, where it's like a little bit slow in the beginning. You're like, where are you going with this? And then it picks up and it's like twist, turn. Oh my gosh, so many things going on. This one, I feel like wasn't that. I was like, okay, I can see where this is gonna be good. I'm picking up momentum. I'm enjoying this. And then I hit like 40-50% and I'm like, this is weird. The people are weird. I don't really care. I'm waiting for the plot twist. Like, I'm trusting you, Frida. You're gonna wow me. Didn't wow me at all. Didn't wow me at all. And also, there's a pregnant woman in this book that calls her unborn child baby tuna. No, little tuna. Baby tuna. All I know is that tuna was written way too frequently in this book. I hated it. In no world should writing tuna that amount of times in a book be legal. It was, no. Tuna has become a new ick word for me, thanks to Frida McFadden. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this one, unfortunately. However, I did enjoy Pictures of You by Emma Gray. I read The Last Love Note, Last Love Letter, The Last Love Note, I think, by her last year, and it was incredible. And so I was really excited to pick up her new release, and I finally got to it, and I binged this book in 2 sittings. And it's like a pretty long book for being like a women's fiction romance book. I binged it. It was so good. This follows Evie Hudson, and she loses her husband and she loses her memory in a car accident. So she doesn't fully lose her memory, but she loses her memory up to a point in her history, and then from there forward she can't remember anything that's gone on. So she's kind of like stunted almost, like she's almost transported back to an earlier time in her memory. And then her high school best friend Drew enters her life and kind of is helping her piece back together what has happened in her life after the accident. She's sitting in the hospital bed and she goes to like call her mom and her best friend and all the people in her life that were really important back at the time that she can remember up till, and none of them are in her contact list. She like has no contact with all of her like core people in her life, and she's like, what the heck has happened over these past few years that I have forgotten that has completely done a 180? Like my life is completely different from when I can last remember. And so they're kind of piecing together the pieces. Her marriage just wasn't a super healthy marriage, and so it's like the contrast of dealing with grief, but also like it was a really unhealthy situation. Drew is just such a sweetheart, her high school best friend. He's just incredible. It was a really great women's fiction with a romance subplot. I feel like it really did a great job of focusing on her and her life and her recovery and kind of her thought process and her character development while still having really, really incredible romance. I gave this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, binged it in 2 sittings. It was incredible. Then I read Sunlight by Devney Perry. This is the second book to Crossroads, and I really enjoyed this book. It was just as good as Crossroads. I enjoyed it just as much. I think I gave it 4 stars. I love this. If you're a fan of like the Chestnut Springs series, I think you should really, really read this series. I think it's like the Haven River Ranch series. Yeah, Haven River Ranch. But this is my introduction to Devney Perry, was Crossroads and then reading this one, and I really like her writing style. I want to continue reading Devney Perry. I had heard about her before but hadn't read anything by her. I really enjoyed this. I like this a lot. It's like a workplace romance trope, kind of like a cowboy romance trope, smaller town, just all the great vibes, spice, but also being really sweet and romantic at the same time, depth and character development. Really amazing read. I think you could totally binge this too in a couple sittings. Also, it's on Kindle Unlimited, so that's a perk. Then we enter my reading vlog where I read pink books for an entire week in honor of Valentine's Day, and we kicked it off with The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. This is a short story set at Valentine's Day. It was flirty, it was fun, it was witty. If you want to know my whole opinion, you can go watch that vlog. But this was basically like a neighbor romance, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It did what it needed to do for a short story. Abby Jimenez books are always just so much fun. I love her writing. It's hilarious and deep simultaneously. I just love her writing style, and it was great. I gave it 3 stars because I feel like that is kind of the max that you can get for most short stories. It's just like a 3-star. You don't have a ton of time to like fully invest in the story if it's under 100 pages. So enjoyable. I would recommend reading it. I thought it was really perfect. I'm glad I read it around Valentine's Day. 3-star rating. It was good. Here's where we take a turn. Punk 57. 1 star. No. Just no. Like, that's my whole review. It's a no. Go watch the vlog. No. I feel bad not saying more than that, but like I honestly, it was bad, you guys. It was bad. He calls her a see you next Tuesday, and that's just like an ick word. That's my least favorite word. And they were in high school. Like, they're young doing all these things. It felt weird. It felt weird to read it. I felt wrong reading it. I didn't like it. I did not like it. 1 star. And I went into Madly Truly Deeply, Truly Madly Deeply, and I still can't get the title right, and that is okay because I didn't like this book very much. I won't be talking about it. 3-star rating for me. There were some redeeming moments, but as a whole, very, very forgettable. I feel like I've already forgotten the entire plot. The plot. That's what we're calling the plot now, is the plot. I'm pretty sure it's like a really rich chef. Oh, I remember. So we have a best friend's brother romance, and it actually destroys their friendship. So the prologue is when I think they're 18 years old, and our 2 main characters have a explicit encounter, and the female main character's best friend gets mad at the female main character for sleeping with her brother. But fast forward, they're all brought back together in their hometown. There's tension. There's a lot of anger, resentment, frustration. The male main character was just a little bit rude, in my opinion, so it didn't love him, and the female main character was a little quirky. I talk about all this also in the vlog, so if you want more thoughts, go check that out. But, I mean, it was fine. It was fine. I wasn't wowed. There's a scene with a zucchini and a candy cane. You can let your mind wander with that. So if you're interested in that, that's all I'm gonna say. Good luck if you read that. Have fun. Then I did my reread of The Hunger Games, and I just took way too long to read this when I was rereading it. I didn't prioritize it, and so it actually like was over the span of like 2 weeks probably reading this book, and it's a short book. So I do have that regret, but I also, my inner child was really happy reading this book. I have to say, for being like a Hunger Games fan in elementary school, like I was a super fan. I remember very little, very, very little. But I had a good time. It made for a fun reread because I had no idea what was happening. So yeah, it was fun. It was like a good dystopian fantasy. Apparently it's sci-fi. My friend told me I read a sci-fi book and I was like, what the heck did I read that was sci-fi? And they're like, Hunger Games, babe. And I was like, oh, you're right. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of thoughts. Is that bad? Maybe my brain's just like empty. I feel like all my books, I'm like, I don't have a ton of thoughts on this. Maybe I just don't have a ton of thoughts in general. I don't know what I rated this. Hold on. I gave this 4 stars, so I enjoyed it, clearly, but yeah, brain empty, sorry. Then I read The Frozen River, and this was my Patreon book club's book of the month, and I gave this a 3.5 stars. This is a historical fiction, women's fiction, and it is set in the 1700s, and it follows a midwife, and it's actually based on a true story, which made it a little bit better for me. And there's just so many themes of like misogyny and what it was to be a woman in this day and age. And there is court cases for abuse and like sexual misconduct. There is so many beautiful quotes about womanhood and like the female body and the power of women, the power of women in community. And there just was a lot of characters. There's also a murder mystery going on in this book, so it kind of has everything. I feel like there was just too much at times. There was a really big lull in the beginning where I was like, this is slow, I'm bored, and then it picked up for a little bit, and then there was a huge lull in the middle, and I was like, it's slow, I'm bored, I want to DNF, and then it picked up at the end, and I loved the ending, but I couldn't just ignore the earlier parts where I was like, I kind of want to DNF this book. So that's where I settled on a 3.5 stars. I feel like it'll be great for conversation for sure. Like I feel like it was a really solid book club pick, but not necessarily my favorite historical fiction. You know, I didn't hate it, also didn't love it. I'm glad I read it. It's going to be great for conversation, but overall just kind of mid, you know? Then I read A Photo Finish by Elsie Silver, and this is the second book in her Gold Rush Rant series, and I am enjoying this series, but it's definitely showing me how much Elsie has grown as a writer, which is cool. You know, it's cool to see. I feel like her earlier books are almost like, they kind of feel like a loop sometimes. Like I was trying to describe this book to my friends and I was like, it feels like a constant loop of both main characters, because it's dual POV. So it's like both main characters sharing their traumas and just kind of ruminating on their traumas and why they can't love and why they're in this cycle and why they're unhappy and yada, 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 which is important, right? Like that is how we get emotionally invested in books, but it felt like they were just kind of like on this cycle of ruminating about their past traumas and why they are the way they are. And then it was like spice. And then it was like, oh no, I can't love you because trauma. Spice. Oh no, remember I have all this trauma. Remember about that? Because like I'm gonna tell you about it all over again. Spice. Like I felt like it was just this loop. You know what I mean? So I think I gave this a 3 star. Yeah, I gave this a 3 star. I actually enjoyed the first book better, and this book only made me love the female main character from the first book even more. Her name's Billy. I really loved her in this book. But this follows Violet Eaton, the Eaton brothers' sister from the Chestnut Springs series. So if you're a fan of Chestnut Springs, you might love this. I enjoyed it. I'm not wanting to like just rip it apart. It just like really brought to light how much Elsie has grown as a writer, which I think is fabulous. I would still recommend reading it, but it's not a series that I feel like you have to prioritize on your TBR. You know, I wouldn't persuade you or dissuade you either way from reading it. Then I read Legendary. This is the second book in the Caravel series. I give this 2 stars. It was started so strong. I was like, I'm getting it, I'm jiving, I'm understanding, I'm into it. I think at the end of the day, I just don't love Tella. She's the main character in this one, and I much preferred Scarlet, her sister, who was the main character in Caravel. I also wasn't shocked by the ending. There's supposed to be like this huge reveal. I wasn't shocked by it. I feel like I was just a little bit let down. 2 stars for this one. I did a lot of this on audio, just trying to get through it. And if I'm having to like lean on audiobooks are great, but if I'm having to lean on the audio just to get through a book, not a good sign. So 2 stars for this one. I know so many of you are going to be so disappointed with me for that, and I'm so sorry, but I have to be honest. That's kind of how I felt. Then this is the most exciting part of my entire month. I got an early release copy of Wild Side by Elsie Silver. Instant 5-star read. Instant 5 stars. It was incredible. I love this series. I love Elsie. Oh my gosh. I feel like reading this right after finishing a photo finish also really highlighted like how much she's grown as an author. I adore her. She's incredible. She has the power to take tropes and things that I actually strongly dislike in books and totally turn them around and make me love them. She's amazing. She is so, so amazing. You guys need to pre-order this book. Get your hands on this book. Whenever you're seeing this, read the series. I cannot wait for book 4. Oh my gosh, this was so good. I don't even think I told you anything about this. This is a fake marriage of convenience trope, and kind of like reverse grumpy sunshine a little bit. He falls first, small town, just like a great interconnected standalone single dad. This entire series is actually single dad, and it was so good. It set up so perfectly for book 4 too. Like I'm already invested and already curious about the couple in book 4. It was so good, you guys. My one and only, I think, 5-star read of the month. Incredible. Then I did a Harry Potter reread, and you're actually going to see this with Wild Side in an upcoming reading vlog. This went so much faster than I thought it would. When I was a kid, these books felt so long. It's not that long. It's 300 pages. I flew through this book. It was so nostalgic. The vibes were perfect. I gave it 4 stars. I don't even know how to rate these books because it's just nostalgia, you know? Like pure nostalgia. It was so fun. It was so fun to reread this. I had a great time. Wrapping up with a nonfiction book, I read Wrapping up with a nonfiction book, I read Fight Right by the Gottmans. So Julie and oh my gosh. Julie and John Gottman. They are from the Gottman Institute, which basically just studies relationships and kind of like relationship dynamics. I love their work. I read 8 Dates by them, and that was really good, and this was great. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I feel like I'm just trying to work on, I'm just gonna overshare here. I'm trying to work on like my communication skills. I feel like I'm one to either like overshare word vomit or like really reserve, almost like shut down in conflict and like really suppress my own needs and just kind of people please and skate along. So this was really interesting. This was a really interesting book. I highly recommend checking it out. Whether you're in a relationship or not, I feel like it just is like great skills, communication skills, I guess, for conflict. I think it was really insightful read. I took pictures, I took notes, like it was good. I recommend checking out the Gottmans in general if you want to learn about like bettering your relationships, romantic or not, you know, just like relationships in general. All right, you guys, those are the 15 books that I read in the month of February. We had some highs, we had some lows, and everything in between. Honestly, I feel like we had a good range this month of all the genres, all the ratings, all the things. But leave a comment down below telling me your favorite book that you read in the month of February. And yeah, I think that's all that I have for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for recapping another month of reading. Make sure you're subscribed here and also following me on all the things. They're always linked down below. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye, book besties.